It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
The Cinderella story for the Florida Panthers continues with their ticket officially punched to the Stanley Cup Final, but we're left to pick up the pieces of what's going on with the Carolina Hurricanes and their exit. We got a Game 4 Eastern Conference Final recap and an assessment of all the Carolina Hurricanes fantasy value. Plus, we got to talk a little bit about who the Florida Panthers are better suited to face in this Cup Final. Thank you for joining us for Friday's episode. Let's get right to it.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We slugged it out. We made it through another week, people. Happy Friday, and welcome back inside the lab that is the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every single day. And I got to let y'all know today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNHL. And when you enter promo code LockedOnNHL, they're going to throw you in a free custom Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. I've been loving mine. I know Steele's using his every day to stay hydrated. I got a few wobbly pops mixed up on the weekends in mine, Steele. But more importantly, as we head into the weekend, we could be headed into a very spicy Stanley Cup Final. We are recording a little bit early, but we want to talk about what team the Florida Panthers are better suited to face, because if the Dallas Stars eke out a win tonight, we could be talking about another interesting series. So who is it? Is it Knights? Is it Stars? We're going to break that down. But I think a little bit more interestingly, Steele, we got to dismantle this Carolina Hurricane situation. Game 4 Eastern Conference Final recap. And we're going to look ahead to the next season's roster breakdown and fantasy value for this Hurricane squad. A lot of changes upcoming. But Steele, I'll throw it right over to you. Kick it off. Game 4 Eastern Conference Final recap. Again, Matthew Tkachuk's energy takes over this game, and I think the Carolina Hurricanes, who did dictate play at a lot of times in this series, just wasn't ready to handle it.
Sergei Bobrovsky, that's the game changer in this series right here. But, obviously the Carolina Hurricanes were finally able to get to him a little bit. First time he's allowed 3 goals in a game since Game 7 against the Boston Bruins in round 1. So they were able to get to him a little bit more than what we saw in the first 3 games. But you're right, Matthew Tkachuk, the energy that he brings, the clutchness, the game-winning goals that he's been doing this entire series, but all playoffs long, setting up his teammates for game winners as well. He's been getting it done. For the Florida Panthers. And those two guys, Matthew Tkachuk, Sergei Bobrovsky, we've pretty much been talking about them all week. For me, for the Carolina Hurricanes, though, it's honestly quite sad. I sent this message to you earlier. 3 times the Carolina Hurricanes have made it to the Eastern Conference Final since 2009. And every single time they've made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, they've been swept. 2009 against the Pittsburgh Penguins, 2019 against the Boston Bruins, and now 2023 against the Florida Panthers. So something is not adding up quite well for the Carolina Hurricanes when they are able to make a deep playoff run, which they have been able to do over the last 5 years. But again, it comes down to the game plan of Paul Maurice and those 2 players, Bobrovsky and Tkachuk, getting it done. Florida did exactly what they've done pretty much all playoffs long. Score first, score early, and then relentless pressure in keeping and holding that lead and even getting to the final minutes of the game. And I have a question, just a simple question for you. How many times do you think the Florida Panthers scored within the first 3 minutes or last 3 minutes of a period so far this postseason?
Ooh, knowing that it's a lot, I'll say 9.
17 times.
Wow.
17 times the Florida Panthers have scored within the first 3 minutes or the last 3 minutes of a period. I know obviously there's three periods per game and they've played 16 games now, but still to score 17 goals to start a period or to finish a period, that just shows the relentless
back-breaking too.
Yeah, back-breaking, the relentless pressure, the quick starts that Paul Maurice has his guys going at right now. And again, you talk about Matthew Tkachuk and the clutchness, scoring with 5 seconds, under 5 seconds in Game 4. tough penalty to take from Jordan Staal, tripping with, a tripping penalty with under a minute and a half in the game.
Tough call, too.
Period.
Tough call,
but it's a tripping call. It was a penalty.
It is.
You have to call that.
It is.
But, as a captain, just a very, very lackadaisical penalty that you just can't be taking in that type of situation. Florida goes on the power play, and they take full advantage of it.
And here it is, Steele. At the end of the day, they did get to Bobrovsky in Game 4, but this is what happens when you're just not able to bring a level balanced attack of offense in the postseason. There's just so many factors that kind of balance each other out at this time of year that it's going to be those Martinukes. It's got to be those, the greasy goals. It's got to sometimes be the unsung heroes who got it done for this team over the first 2 rounds. That just went dry in this Eastern Conference final. And then on the other hand, you have it firing on all cylinders for the Florida Panthers. And I think at the end of the day, for me, they gave it their best, and credit due to a team that I think we also mentioned did dictate play for a good chunk of a number of these games to just get beaten by some timely goals. Bobrovsky again in Game 4, timely saves if we're talking about recap here. And for me, headed into the final, the mojo, the confidence, the swagger that this Florida team has now is going to be really tough to beat. And I mentioned it to you just quickly before we jumped on. Vegas Golden Knights haven't even punched their ticket yet, commanding a -120 favorite betting odd for that Stanley Cup. At +110 Steele right now. I'm jumping all over the Florida Panthers for fun. They've already punched their ticket. I'm not saying Dallas is coming back. I think we're going to see Vegas, Florida. We might even see that in 4 games as well. But at +110, the Florida Panthers have earned that respect. But more on to the Carolina Hurricanes side of thing after we come back from break. We'll break down the roster for next season. There's some interesting UFAs that they're going to have to manage. We're going to break down some fantasy value for some of these pieces that have performed and underperformed. And then I really do want to talk about who the Panthers are better suited to face in the Cup final. If you are Paul Maurice and these Cats, who do you want to take on? There's some interesting angles on both sides of the fence. But one of the other things that you need to hear about is about our friends at Bird Dogs, because today's episode is brought to you by Bird Dogs. And Steele and I have been absolutely loving our new shorts from Bird Dogs. They fit nice. They're comfortable. They're versatile. You can wear them on the golf course. You can wear them out to dinner. You can wear them out to a business lunch, Steele. They look great, and they make you feel great wearing Bird Dogs. That stretchy fabric make the legs look amazing, and they're comfier than any other shorts or pants that I wear, for real. They give me the freedom to wear one pair of shorts or pants on the course, to the meeting, to a date, like I said, or even hanging out with friends. Aside from Steele and I, though, some of these celebs out here, Steele, they're rocking with Bird Dogs too. Bert Kreischer, Dave Portnoy, he does the pizza reviews wearing Bird Dogs and talks about how he might hate the za, but the legs are looking fire in the Bird Dogs. And you need to be hitting up birddogs.com today and getting yourself at least a couple of pairs. I believe Steele has some extra gym shorts already on order because he's feeling them so much. Make sure you head to birddogs.com today /LockedOnNHL. And when you enter promo code LockedOnNHL,
just as we definitely all predicted, the 8th seed Miami Heat are 1 win away from the NBA Finals.
The Heat have the urgency. They have the focus. They smell blood in the water. They punched the Celtics in the mouth, and the Celtics folded.
The 2023 WNBA season is officially underway.
Aaliyah Boston made her WNBA debut against the Connecticut Sun on Friday.
The number one thing for me is that she's really good.
And 4 teams are left battling for 2 spots in the Stanley Cup Finals.
The Florida Panthers and Vegas Golden Knights found ways to win in overtime in dramatic fashion.
For more on all these stories, check out new episodes of Locked On Heat, Locked On Women's Basketball, and Locked On NHL, all free and available wherever you get podcasts.
They're going to throw you in a custom Bird Dogs Yeti-style tumbler with every single order, so make sure you don't slip or sleep. And head over to birddogs.com today and get swagged out for the summer.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. So make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. Flip and I appreciate all the love, all the support you show us every single day. we are going to continue on the topic of the Carolina Hurricanes, what their future holds for next year, fantasy value-wise, what their roster is even going to look like. We are going to get to a look ahead of the Stanley Cup Finals as well. The Florida Panthers, again, we're recording a little bit early right now, so they could, at this point when this episode's published, they could be already facing up against the Vegas Golden Knights, or they wait another day for the Western Conference Finals to finish up between the Dallas Stars and Vegas Golden Knights. Before we get to the roster real quick, Flip, I do want to just quickly wrap up what we were discussing about the Eastern Conference Finals.
Thank you.
And I want to talk about Rod Brind'Amour and his post-game press conference and exactly what he said, because to me, he pretty much said word for word verbatim what I said after the Panthers, what I said after the Panthers beat the Leafs in 5. Word for word. What Rod Brind'Amour said in his post-game press conference. That's not what happened. We didn't lose 4 games. We got beat, but we were right there and easily could have been the other way, 4-0 us. And that's pretty much exactly what I said against the Panthers and Toronto Maple Leafs. It easily could have been the other way. And, to your comment about the lack of offense, the Carolina Hurricanes did have a lack of offense, but I think it more so showcased the incredible ability of the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes defensively in this series, because it's not like the Florida Panthers were scoring a ton of goals either. They had a game where they won 1-0, a 2-1 overtime, a 3-2.
Good point.
Lack of offense from both sides, but tremendous defense from both the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. And real quick, just another weird stat: Florida's last 8 games in the postseason have been decided by 1 goal. And I think 13 out of 16 have been decided by 2 goals. So very close games in every single round so far from Florida.
Before we continue down the Carolina Hurricanes path, because we're going to talk about the Florida Panthers and tee up whoever they take on in the Stanley Cup Final in extreme detail before the Cup Final drops. So make sure you're tuned and tapped into the show for the rest of next week. But the Florida Panthers, no one is going to talk about it if they win a cup. They might not even be talking about it now. They were down 3-1 to the Boston.
Yeah.
And I even had to check myself the other day, Steele, and I watch way too much hockey and make too many hockey bets. And I had to even go, wait a second. They were absolutely on the brink. And if not for, again, shocker, Matthew Tkachuk, arguably now the most valuable fantasy hockey piece in the NHL. I don't think we can, you were saying that last year he was already on the bubble. Brady Tkachuk, his brother, was on the bubble too. I think, there I go dropping my pen because I'm all excited here. But Matthew Tkachuk, anyway, that's a whole other sidebar. But back to the Carolina Hurricanes, Steele. The well runs dry a little bit, and Rod Brind'Amour, we love it. We love the goaltending situation, but that's where I want to start headed into next season here. And shout out to Cap Friendly, Ranta UFA, Freddie UFA, and I want your take on what this goaltending situation means for the fantasy value of my boy Pyotr Kochetkov, because they're gonna have to run out some sort of combination. I don't think they're ready to just throw over the reins to a rookie goaltender who at times last year had his struggles. So they're going to have to bring back one of the vets. I don't know who you think makes the most sense. To me, it's clear in a way, Freddie, and you let Ranta go. But hit me with your take on now that let's look forward to this Carolina Hurricanes roster.
Yeah, there's, obviously when you're looking at the cap friendly right now and the Carolina Hurricanes salary cap issues, there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of UFAs and RFAs over the next year or two. I don't think they have to do quite as much this year. They obviously can if they want to, but you're right. Besides Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Pyotr Kochetkov, and Andrei Svechnikov, those are the only 3 players that got locked up for more than 2 years. Everyone else is either on the last year of their contract or they're already, they're going to be a UFA or an RFA. So they don't technically have to. They
did sign Kochetkov to that extension, but up front, you're totally accurate.
Yeah, no, I did say Kochetkov.
Oh, my bad. My bad. You know me in the ears, pal.
But yeah, those are the only 3 players Carolina has signed up for 2+ years right now. They got a lot of UFAs. They got a lot of RFAs. Again, I think the main priority for the Hurricanes this offseason is re-signing Frederik Andersen and Max Pacioretty. I think those are the two guys you want to re-sign as soon as possible. Again, I'm with you in the sense they probably let Antti Raanta go. If somehow they can manage their cap and get Antti Raanta and Frederik Andersen to sign, a little bit cheaper and get those three goalies again for next year, that would be fantastic. I don't think they'll go that route. I think Antti Raanta will probably want a little bit more money. And then after
and he's earned it.
Andersen, he has earned it. Definitely has, because he's been a reliable backup who can be a starter when you need him to. So after Frederik Andersen and after Max Pacioretty, those are the two guys. I think right behind those two are Jesper Fast and Jordan Staal. I think those two guys will take, very team-friendly deals. Jordan Staal is going to want to remain a Carolina Hurricane. He's been the captain the last few years, taking it over for his brother Eric Staal when he got traded or left the team a few years or, a while back now. But I think after Andersen and Pacioretty, it's Jesper Fast and Jordan Staal. And then again, you've got 5 guys on entry-level contracts: Jack Drury, Seth Jarvis, Ryan Suzuki up front. So they've got guys on entry-level contracts right now. Again, maybe you let Antti Raanta and Shane Gostisbehere walk. So
you got to think they let Gostisbehere walk after how soft he was.
Create a little extra cap space for those guys. But truly, again, I don't think it's going to be a very busy summer for them, but it will be the summer of 2024. They'll have so much on their plate to do. So maybe they just get it out of the way. They've got to re-sign Sebastian Aho, Martin Necas, Teuvo Teravainen, Jordan Martinook, Seth Jarvis, and Jack Drury. Again, will be at the end of their entry-level contract. And those are top priority guys that you need to re-sign and are the future of the Carolina Hurricanes.
And this is a volatile situation here, Steele. That's what I wanted to leave it at, because now you're looking at, hey, Kochetkov is worth a look now. He's earned that right to – now you have to kind of give him a shot. You had your aging veterans hold you down. Contracts are up. Now you have to kind of look to the future a little bit. So that makes sense to me in the crease. But all the things that we're saying, I think, to me, the main takeaway is we have to be wary with some of these fantasy pieces on this Carolina Hurricanes team. As much as the back end is still going to be solid, some of those core pieces are going to be solid. And, hey, if they run back Kochetkov and Andersen, I'm kind of intrigued to see what that tandem can do. But I think my main thing that I also wanted to say was we know how good that Metro division has been and how good it will be next season. As much as there's some teams in flux in the Atlantic, I think we know the Rangers are going to be coming back heavy. Pittsburgh is retooling both on and off the ice. They're not going to be bad for long. Sid's going to push for another cup. So I think the Carolina Hurricanes need to be careful, and we need to be careful with the fantasy value of some of these players. But you made a really good point of Sebastian Aho in a contract year, Necas in a contract year, Seth Jarvis looking to make the first money of his career. I love players that we already like at a young point in their career, ready to prove me situations, Steele. Am I going to say every single guy with their contract up is going to go off? No. But it happens all the time. And I'll bet you, of those 3 guys that I just mentioned, at least 2 go off to make themselves some big-time money coming up. So anyway, Seth Jarvis, I had to get that little plug in there.
I was just about to say, Seth Jarvis, I am excited for him next year.
I was a little early on Jarvis last year. My hype was a little early, but you can see it's coming.
You saw something that a lot of us didn't see from the get-go. We knew that he was going to be, he is a talented player, but you were right on this guy from the start. So kudos to you, but I am excited about Seth Jarvis. I thought he was incredible. I thought he was fantastic.
5 goals, 5 assists.
I thought, again, how old is he right now? He's 21 years old, turning 22.
Yeah.
He's got a bright future. He looks great. Him with Martin Necas and obviously Sebastian Aho. They get Andrei Svechnikov back next year. The team's going to look real quick, though, before we move over to a look ahead of the Stanley Cup Finals. Real quick, though, and I even hate that I'm bringing this up. I hate that I'm asking this question. But obviously, we've seen already a few coaching changes in the NHL. We've seen a few general manager situations throughout the years.
We're going to see a lot more.
Regarding the Carolina Hurricanes and Rod Brind'Amour, because I love this coach. He's, again, right up there with Paul Maurice, one of my favorite coaches in the NHL. He's been the head coach for 5 years now of the Carolina Hurricanes. He played 10 seasons with the Hurricanes. He's won a Stanley Cup. Even the general manager, Don Waddell, he's been with the team for 5 years now as general manager. He's with the team for 9 years as president. Do you make a coaching change going into the offseason? Like, I know he has this historic background with the Carolina Hurricanes. You know, he's been to 2 conference finals. He's been to 3 conference semifinals, and he just hasn't been able to get to the Stanley Cup in the 5 years he's been with Carolina. He's done a fantastic job too.
He's been with them that long. Eh? This is his 5th season behind the bench.
This was his 5th season with the Carolina Hurricanes. The last 3 years, he's finished top of the Metropolitan Division, and he's been in the playoffs all 5 years. So he's doing an incredible job. He's getting deep playoff runs, just can't get to the Stanley Cup Finals and eventually win it.
Here's an interesting little wrinkle, because when teams can't get it done, Steele, and they want to turn the page, I look to the draft stock, because, they're obviously going to want to let a new coaching staff and a new GM staff make their imprint on the squad. And have a look at the draft cupboard for the Carolina Hurricanes over the next 3 seasons. It's stocked full. Yeah. How about next season? They have their first 4 rounds. They have 2 5th-rounders and 2 6th-rounders. And then next draft, 4 picks in the first 3 rounds. If you're going to do it, you do it now. But my answer would be no, because I really don't hang any of this on the coach. There were some questionable situations this year up in the front office either? I don't think so. I think it came down to just a bit unlucky with this team with the injuries. And I hate to say that because
they caught a hot team.
And they caught a really hot team, but they have to wake up for next season, right? Because my leash with them is going to be shorter next year. I'm okay with the way that they went out this year. Yeah, they go out with a whimper in the Eastern Conference Final, but those numbers indicated that they really were right there. So my long answer, really, really long, Steele, I run back with Brind'Amour for sure for at least 1 more year.
I'm there.
Let the guy have his full roster.
That's why I even hated bringing up the question, because I'm there with you. I think you run it back with Brind'Amour. He's meant so much to Carolina, and he's been an unreal coach, one of the best coaches over the last 5 years, and just been doing a fantastic job. We are going to get to the Stanley Cup Finals look ahead, but real quick, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make a fast break to FanDuel during the NBA and NHL playoffs right now, because right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. It's the easiest and safest sports betting app on the market. They have great promotions every day. And Flip and I especially love using the popular same game parlay feature for all the hottest and all the spiciest parlays you can think of for today's games. There's no better place to bet all the playoff action than America's #1 sportsbook. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Don't forget, we are free and available on your favorite podcast platform, including YouTube. Make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate the love and support every single day. Flip, I'm just going to assume at this point it's Florida versus Vegas. I know we're going to look at both comparisons for both teams, but it's probably the Vegas Golden Knights and the Florida Panthers in the Stanley Cup Finals is what it seems like. Florida's first Stanley Cup Finals since 1996. And if it is Vegas in the Stanley Cup, it's their first visit there since 2018. So again, short history for the Vegas Golden Knights, but it's been 5 years already since they lost the Washington Capitals in the Stanley Cup Finals. What are your thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals this year? This is not what we expected.
It's not what we expected. It's unorthodox. Is it good for some of the smaller markets in the NHL? And I don't mean any disrespect to South Florida or to Vegas, who are clearly quite rabid. By the way, total sidebar. The Miami Heat are about to upset the Boston Celtics.
Yeah.
South Florida's a party. Steele, you might need to take a plane back to Ontario, and we'll have to bust down to Florida, or maybe I'll meet you there because it's about to be a sports party in South Beach. That's a whole other situation, but the situation that's at hand, realistically, yes, it's the Vegas Golden Knights against the Florida Panthers. But for the sake of us actually, and still for the people still listening, shout out to all those folks holding us down. We will be here all summer, by the way, people, and helping you with your draft, so stay tuned in. I think that the Dallas Stars, of course, they've been outplayed by the Vegas Golden Knights, but when you look at the 2 games the Panthers played against the Dallas Stars this year, they got dusted aside. Dallas scored 11 goals against the Panthers in 2 games. And I know that's a small sample size, and if we're here to talk about who they're better suited to play, I think for sure, like just on paper, the bigger rough and tumble team of the Vegas Golden Knights is going to pose a bigger issue for this Florida Panthers squad. So I think realistically, if I was the Panthers, I'd want to play the Dallas Stars, especially with all the confidence you're seeing from the Vegas Golden Knights right now, Steele. But here it is for me. If the Florida Panthers did all of what they've done, magic, Matthew Tkachuk's energy. By the way, that barn was rocking in South Florida last night. Absolutely rocking. And to see Tkachuk, Keith Tkachuk, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now, Steele. I want to see them keep winning. But here it is. If Bob runs dry and Tkachuk's clutch scoring, Vegas is going to come in here and take this cup for their own because they're ready to win, and they've had all of the things go against them. So I think we have Cinderella story in a certain way for Vegas, better team on paper, and a Cinderella story about to go toe-to-toe. And that's really going to make, for me, as much as it is under the radar and underrated, I'm pretty excited for this final.
I'm very excited for this finals. You know, it's funny, like my mom's from Florida. She was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, and I've never seen her watch more hockey than I have this postseason with the Florida Panthers. She's loving it now. That. So I might have to hop on that, bandwagon of the Florida Panthers heading into the Stanley Cup Finals. I'm on the opposite side of you. I think it's an easier matchup against the Vegas Golden Knights than the Dallas Stars. I was looking at a few of their head-to-head situations here. 2-2 in the tied the season series this year. 2-2. Lots of penalties, physical games. I think the Florida Panthers have a team where they can get under the skin of some of their top players, like Pietrangelo on the back end, Marchessault or Mark Stone on the up front. What I'm really excited about, though, is the competition between Jack Eichel and Matthew Tkachuk. I think this is going to be phenomenal. We're talking about Jack Eichel, 2nd overall pick in 2015. Tkachuk, 6th overall pick in 2016. And it's to me, it's funny enough that Eichel, who was traded in November of 2021, Tkachuk, who was traded in July of 2022, now are both finding themselves probably in the Stanley Cup Final.
I like the parallels you're drawing here.
Recording a little bit early, but I'm just assuming the Vegas Golden Knights are in
there. No. Let's go. Come on. They're going to probably sweep.
They're probably going to sweep, especially without Jamie Benn in this situation. But yeah, the competition between Jack Eichel and Matthew Tkachuk, to me, Matthew Tkachuk, a top 10 fantasy player now. Eichel, probably at least a 2nd-round fantasy draft pick. At least I would put him that high.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, you would.
I know I would. I'm not sure. Maybe you think third round.
These are all the conversations that we're going to have. And I was also just going to say, save some of your bullets in the chamber because we're going to have to talk in depth about this Stanley Cup final and break it all down from every single angle because it warrants it every year, but especially this year because I think because of all these step-outs performances, Steele, even from some of the players on some of the teams that have just been left on the cutting room floor, I like to say that, it's going to mean certain things for next year's fantasy draft that are either going to be real, right? Like we're going to have to jump on some of these pieces. Like I think Jack Eichel, we can both agree it's real. He's back, baby. He's going to be a good fantasy piece, top 2, maybe 3 rounds. But some of these might be fugazis. You know what I'm saying? They might be some fakes here, Steele. So we'll break all of that down. But yeah, save some of this Vegas, hopefully, and Florida preview for Monday's episode because, we'll be back in a big way, baby.
We will be back in a big way. Stanley Cup Finals right around the corner, right around the weekend. One final little tidbit about this Florida Panthers action. They have been outshot by their opponents 3 times. Oh, wait, sorry. They've outshot their opponents 3 times out of the 16 games this postseason.
Here he is.
But they actually, funny enough, they outshot the Vegas Golden Knights in every single game in the regular season.
Dang.
So something to look forward to, a little caveat there as well. Tease for next episode on Monday. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every single day. Again, make sure you're tuning in Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time is when you can find all of our episodes. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform and on YouTube. So hit the subscribe, hit the follow button. We appreciate all the love, all the support you show us every single day. Have a great day, a good weekend out there. Good luck with all your bets, and we shall see you back here again on Monday.
Happy Memorial Day to all of those south of the border. Peace.
Just as we definitely all predicted, the 8th seed Miami Heat are 1 win away from the NBA Finals.
The Heat have the urgency. They have the focus. They smell blood in the water. They punched the Celtics in the mouth, and the Celtics folded.
The 2023 WNBA season is officially underway.
Aaliyah Boston made her WNBA debut against the Connecticut Sun on Friday.
The number one thing for me is that she's really good.
And 4 teams are left battling for 2 spots in the Stanley Cup Finals.
The Florida Panthers and Vegas Golden Knights found ways to win in overtime in dramatic fashion.
For more on all these stories, check out new episodes of Locked On Heat, Locked On Women's Basketball, and Locked On NHL, all free and available wherever you get podcasts.